It was a bright Saturday morning in the small town of Greenfield. The streets were quiet except for the occasional chirping of birds and the sound of wind brushing through the trees. Inside the grand church at the heart of the town, everything was set for what people called the wedding of a year. The pews were filled with family members, friends, and neighbors who had come to witness the union of Daniel Roberts and Cynthia Marshall. Daniel was a successful real estate developer in his early 30s. He had a reputation for being kind-hearted and generous. Cynthia, on the other hand, was known for her beauty and grace. She had grown up in a different town and moved to Greenfield 2 years ago. Since then, she had become a part of the community, volunteering at the soup kitchen and helping with church events. Everyone admired her. Pastor James, who had been the town's pastor for over 20 years, stood at the altar. He was a tall man in his 60s with a calm and wise demeanor. He had baptized most of the children in the town and had officiated many weddings. He was loved and respected. Today he was honored to officiate Daniel and Cynthia's wedding. He had counseled them both during premarital sessions and believed they were ready for the journey ahead. The music started playing. All heads turned as the church doors opened. Cynthia walked down the aisle in a beautiful white gown. Her smile was soft, but her eyes seemed unsure. Daniel watched her with admiration, unaware of the storm about to come. Pastor James glanced at her as she approached. Something about her face made him pause, but he shook off the feeling and smiled as she reached the altar. The ceremony began. Pastor James led the couple through their vows. Just as he asked if anyone had a reason why the two should not be joined in holy matrimony, something caught his eye. He saw a woman in the crowd standing in the back. She was weeping silently, her eyes fixed on Cynthia. Then she whispered something under her breath. Pastor James looked at Cynthia again. This time he saw it, a slight twitch in her hand, her eyes shifting nervously, her lips trembling. It was subtle but clear to a discerning eye. He felt a sudden heaviness in his spirit. Something was wrong, something hidden. He paused. The room fell silent. People looked around confused. Daniel turned to the pastor with concern. Cynthia stared at the floor. Pastor James took a deep breath. Then he spoke. Daniel, I am sorry, but I cannot continue the ceremony until I speak to the bride privately. The room erupted into murmurs. Cynthia's eyes widened. Daniel looked stunned. As Cynthia sat before Pastor James in the small room behind the altar, her heart pounded like a drum. Her fingers twisted the hem of her gown, and her eyes stayed fixed on the floor. Pastor James remained silent, waiting patiently. He had seen this kind of fear before, but something about this was deeper and heavier. Cynthia finally lifted her head. Her voice was soft and full of pain. That woman, the one crying in the back, she is my sister. Or she was. We have not spoken in 6 years. Her name is Clara. I thought she would never find me. I thought I had escaped all of it. Pastor James leaned forward gently. Escape from what, my dear? Cynthia's voice cracked as she continued. From the life I used to live. Before I came to Greenfield, I was someone else. I was married. I had a husband. His name was Marcus. He was not a good man. He was controlling, cruel, and manipulative. I tried to leave him, but he threatened me. I was scared. One night, after a terrible fight, I ran away. I changed my name, moved here, and started over. I never told anyone, not even Daniel. Pastor James sat back in his chair, his face grave. And your sister, she was against me leaving Marcus. She believed I should have stayed and tried harder. She blamed me for the destruction of our family. When I left, I cut all ties. I did not want her finding me. But now she is here, and I know she is going to tell Daniel everything. Meanwhile, back in the church, Daniel stood at the altar, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Guests murmured among themselves. The tension in the room was thick. Clara remained at the back of the church, her eyes red from crying. She held a small envelope in her hands. Inside were old photographs and documents, proof of Cynthia's past. She had not come to ruin her sister's life. She had come because she was dying. She had stage 4 cancer, and only a few months to live. All she wanted was to see her sister one last time and maybe find peace before the end. But when she saw her about to marry someone who knew nothing of her history, she felt torn. Should she protect her sister's secret or tell the truth? Pastor James returned to the altar with Cynthia by his side. Her face was pale but composed. She took Daniel's hands in hers. "Daniel, there is something you need to know. Something I should have told you long ago." And with that she began to speak. Her voice echoed through the church as she told the story of her past, of the man she ran from, the pain she endured, and of the sister she left behind. The guests listened in shock. Some cried. Others looked away. Daniel stood still, silent, trying to process the truth. Pastor James watched closely, praying that the truth would set her free. Daniel stood in silence. His hands trembled slightly as Cynthia's words echoed through the air. The church was still. You could hear a pin drop. Guests sat frozen, unsure of how to react. Cynthia kept her eyes on Daniel. Her voice had gone quiet. Her heart raced. She knew this could be the end of everything. Daniel finally spoke. "You were married before, and you never told me." Cynthia nodded slowly. "Yes, I was married to Marcus. I ran away. I changed everything. I was scared. I wanted a new life. I wanted peace. I was ashamed and I was broken." Daniel looked down. His breath was heavy. "Why did you not trust me with the truth? We talked about everything. I told you my past, my struggles, my mistakes, and you hid something this big." Cynthia's lips trembled. "I wanted to tell you so many times, but I was afraid. Afraid you would look at me differently. Afraid you would not want me anymore. I thought if I buried it deep enough it would stay gone." I never expected Clara to show up today. At the back of the church, Clara stepped forward. All eyes turned to her. She held the envelope tightly in her hands. She looked at Daniel, then at her sister. "I never came to destroy your happiness. I came because I am dying. I have cancer. I only have a few months left. I just wanted to see you one last time, Cynthia. I thought maybe if I gave you these you would find the courage to tell the truth." She held out the envelope. Pastor James walked down the aisle and took it from her. He handed it to Daniel. Inside were photographs of Cynthia and Marcus, marriage records, hospital reports, a restraining order. Cynthia had truly lived through pain. Daniel flipped through the documents. His hands tightened. Then he looked at Cynthia again. He saw the fear in her eyes, the hurt, the shame, but also something else. He saw the strength she used to survive, the courage it took to start over, the heart that had loved him so purely. Pastor James spoke softly. "Sometimes the truth is not easy to share, especially when it brings back pain. But truth brings healing. This moment is not about judgment. It is about choice. Daniel, what will you choose?" Daniel stepped forward. He took Cynthia's hand. His voice was steady. "You should have told me. I wish you had. But I see now why you couldn't. I see the weight you carried, the past you fought to escape. And I see the woman who stood by me, loved me, helped others, the woman I fell in love with." Cynthia's eyes filled with tears. "I am so sorry, Daniel." Daniel wiped her tears gently. "I forgive you, Cynthia. I want us to walk in truth from now on. No more hiding." The guests began to clap softly. Clara stepped closer, and Cynthia reached out her hand. The two sisters held each other, for the first time in years. Pastor James smiled. He turned to the crowd. "Let us continue the ceremony, not as we began it, but with more truth, more healing, more love." The church felt different now. It was no longer just a place of beauty and celebration. It had become a place of truth, a place where secrets were broken and hearts were exposed. Pastor James stood before the guests with a new sense of purpose. The ceremony would not go on as planned, but it would go on with deeper meaning. Cynthia held Daniel's hand tightly. Her fingers trembled, but her heart felt lighter. For the first time in years, she had told the truth. She had exposed the parts of her story she had tried to forget, and yet Daniel had not walked away. He stood beside her stronger than before. Pastor James took a deep breath. "Let us now begin again, not with fear, but with honesty, not with shame, but with hope." The guests leaned forward. They were no longer just spectators. They were witnesses to a rare kind of love, a love that had been tested and found true. Daniel turned to Cynthia. "I promise to love you, all of you, the woman you were. the woman you are, and the woman you will become. I will not run from your past. I will walk with you through it. Cynthia's voice was soft but steady, and I promise to never hide again, to trust you with my truth, to stand by your side through every storm. I love you, Daniel, not just for who you are, but for how you chose to love me when it was hardest. Pastor James smiled as he joined their hands together. By the power given to me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may now kiss the bride. Daniel leaned forward and kissed Cynthia. It was not the kind of kiss people clap for. It was not loud or dramatic. It was gentle, full of peace, full of understanding, full of love. The guests stood and clapped. Some wiped away tears. Others hugged each other. It was a moment that would be remembered for years to come. Clara stood quietly at the side. Her face was wet with tears. She had not expected this. She had thought the wedding would end in disaster. But instead it had become a miracle. Cynthia turned and walked toward her. She opened her arms. Clara hesitated, then stepped into her sister's embrace. They held each other tightly. I am sorry, Clara whispered. I should have supported you back then. I did not understand the pain you were in. And I am sorry too, Cynthia said. I should have trusted that you could change. I should have looked for you. I should have forgiven sooner. They cried together. Two sisters broken by the past, now healing in each other's arms. After the ceremony, the guests moved to the reception hall. The room was filled with soft music and warm lights. People ate and laughed and danced. But for Cynthia and Daniel, it was not just a celebration. It was a new beginning. Daniel walked with Cynthia to the center of the dance floor. The first song began. They danced slowly, holding each other close. The world around them faded. There were no more secrets, no more lies, just the truth and love. Pastor James watched from the side. He smiled as he sipped his drink. He had seen many weddings in his life, but this one was different. This one had changed lives. Later that evening, Daniel and Cynthia sat outside under the stars. The night was quiet, the wind gentle. Cynthia looked up at the sky. I was so afraid this day would be ruined. Daniel looked at her, but it was not ruined. It was made real. Cynthia leaned against his shoulder. Thank you for believing in me. Daniel kissed her forehead. Always. The next morning the sun rose over Greenfield, casting a soft golden light on the town. Birds chirped happily as if celebrating the new beginning that had taken place the day before. Cynthia woke up slowly, her eyes blinking against the light that poured to the bedroom window. Daniel was still asleep beside her, his breathing calm and steady. She turned her head and watched him for a while. A soft smile touched her lips. How had she gotten so lucky? How had she found someone who would still stand beside her after learning everything? She reached over and gently held his hand. His fingers curled around hers even in sleep. But not everything felt settled. Though the wedding had ended in joy and truth, Cynthia could not ignore the ache that still rested inside her. Clara was dying. Her sister, who had once judged her, who had once walked away, was now standing on the edge of life. Cynthia had found peace and love, but not yet in family. Later that day, Cynthia met Clara at the old park near the lake. They had played there as children before life had taken them down different paths. Clara sat on the bench, wrapped in a shawl, her face pale and tired. Cynthia sat beside her. They watched the ducks float across the water. Silence passed between them like a gentle breeze. I always wonder what happened to you, Clara said quietly. I was angry for a long time, but deep down I was scared too. Scared of what he might have done to you. I never said it out loud, but I prayed you got away. Cynthia looked down at her hands. I did get away, but I lost so much along the way. I lost you. I lost myself. It took everything in me to start over. Clara nodded slowly. I came here to stop the wedding. But the truth is, I just want to see you one last time. I did not expect to find forgiveness. They sat in silence again. Then Cynthia reached into her purse and pulled out a small folded paper. It was a picture. A photo of the two of them as children standing by the lake with arms wrapped around each other. Clara took the photo and stared at it. Her hands trembled. Thank you, she whispered. Come stay with us for a while, Cynthia said. Please. We have space. We have time. Let us use it. Clara's eyes filled with tears. I do not want to be a burden. You are my sister. You are never a burden. And so Clara moved into the guest room of Cynthia and Daniel's home. At first it was quiet, awkward even, but slowly the warmth of home wrapped itself around her. Daniel treated her with kindness and respect. He never brought up the past. He simply made her feel safe. Each evening they would eat together, talk about life, laugh about silly things. And each night, Clara would feel a little more at peace. One day Daniel came home with a surprise. He had arranged for Clara to see a specialist in the city. There might still be treatment options, he said gently. It is worth a try. Clara looked at him with wide eyes. Why are you doing this for me? Because you are family, and because I love your sister, and she loves you. Clara agreed to try. The next few weeks were filled with hospital visit scans and quiet prayers. Cynthia never left her side. She sat with her through the tests, held her hand during the hard days, and celebrated every small improvement. It was not easy, but it brought them closer. The bond they once shared as children was slowly being rebuilt. Not from perfect moments, but from real ones. Honest ones. One night Clara whispered from her bed, I am scared, Cynthia. What if the treatment does not work? Cynthia held her hand tightly. Then we fight together. Every step. And if it does not work, we still have each other. It was a quiet afternoon. The sky was gray with soft clouds hanging low. Cynthia had just finished making soup in the kitchen. Clara was resting in the living room wrapped in a warm blanket. Daniel was on his laptop, going through some office work. The house felt calm, peaceful, and full of silent understanding. Then the doorbell rang. Cynthia wiped her hands and walked to the door. She opened it slowly, expecting maybe a neighbor or a package delivery. But what she saw froze her in place. Standing in front of her was Marcus. He was older now. His hair was darker. His eyes colder. He wore a long black coat and held a smug look on his face. For a moment, Cynthia could not breathe. Her heart slammed against her chest. Her knees almost gave way. Hello, Cynthia, he said with a slight grin. Daniel stood up from the couch when he heard the door open. He walked over and saw the man standing there. Cynthia's face was pale. Her hands had started to shake. Daniel stepped beside her protectively. Who are you? Daniel asked calmly, but firmly. Marcus looked Daniel up and down. I am her husband, he said flatly. Cynthia gasped. You are not. Not anymore. You lost that right the day I ran away. Marcus laughed coldly. That is not how the law sees it. I never signed any divorce papers. You left. You disappeared. That marriage still stands. Daniel stepped in front of Cynthia. You need to leave now. Marcus took a step forward. Or what? You will call the police. You do not scare me. Cynthia finally found her voice. What do you want, Marcus? Why are you here? Marcus looked around the doorway. I want what belongs to me. You. My name. My rights. And maybe a little money too. I hear you married well. Daniel's jaw tightened. Leave before I make you. Clara had come to the hallway. She had heard the voice. When she saw Marcus, her whole body stiffened. She remembered his anger, his threats, the nights Cynthia cried because of him. She stepped forward slowly, her voice weak, but steady. You do not belong here, Marcus. Leave before you lose more than you already have. Marcus looked at her and smirked. I see the dying sister found her courage. Touching. Cynthia stood tall. Her fear was still inside her, but she was no longer the same woman who had run away in the middle of the night. I am not scared of you anymore, Marcus. You can't hurt me. I have people who love me. I have protection. And I have a voice. She slammed the door in his face. Daniel locked it. Then he called the police. Within minutes, 2 officers arrived. They listened to Cynthia's story. They took down every detail. They gave her a restraining order form and promised to patrol the area for the next few days. Clara sat beside Cynthia after the officers left. She held her hand. You were brave today. You faced him. Cynthia looked at her. I had to. For myself. For Daniel. For you. That night was quiet again. But it was a different kind of quiet. The kind that comes after a storm. The the kind that feels strong and still. Daniel sat beside Cynthia on the bed. I will never let anyone hurt you, not while I am alive. She leaned her head on his shoulder. I know. And Clara from the next room whispered a silent prayer, thankful that the past had come, but more thankful that it had not won. The following days passed slowly. Cynthia stayed mostly indoors. The fear from Marcus's visit still lingered in her chest. Even though the police had promised protection, and even though Daniel never left her side, she still woke up at night in cold sweat. Her dreams were filled with shadows of her past, and her heart ached from the weight of everything. Daniel noticed. He held her close every night. He listened to her when she needed to talk, and when she wanted silence, he simply stayed near. He knew she was trying to stay strong, but strength sometimes comes in pieces. Clara grew weaker. Her treatments had helped for a while, but her body was tired. Still, she smiled when Cynthia entered the room. Still, she cracked jokes with Daniel. Still, she tried to make her remaining time full of love. One morning, as sunlight streamed through the window, Cynthia sat by Clara's bedside. Clara had lost weight. Her cheeks were thinner, her voice softer, but her eyes still held warmth. I never thought we would find each other again, Clara said slowly. But we did, and that is more than I could have asked for. Cynthia blinked back tears. I wish we had more time. Time does not matter, Clara whispered. Love does. Forgiveness does. What we have done in these past weeks has healed years of silence. That is what counts. They held hands in silence. Later that afternoon, Pastor James came to visit. He brought a warm smile and a small basket of baked goods. He sat beside Clara and prayed with her. He talked with Daniel and shared stories from the past. He brought peace with him. Before he left, he pulled Cynthia aside. I know the past tried to follow you, but you did not let it win. You faced it. You told the truth. You forgave. And now you are healing. I am trying, Cynthia said softly. Some days are harder than others. That is how healing works, Pastor James replied. One honest step at a time. That night, Cynthia sat on the porch with Daniel. The stars were clear above them. The wind was gentle. Daniel handed her a small notebook. What is this, she asked. Your new beginning, he said. Write your story. All of it. Not just the pain, but the strength, the love, the lessons. Your voice is powerful, and it needs to be heard. Cynthia opened the notebook. The pages were blank. Waiting. She picked up a pen and began to write. I was once broken, but now I am healing. I was once afraid, but now I am learning to be brave. I once ran, but now I stand. As she wrote, Daniel wrapped his arm around her. They sat there together under the stars as the night held them gently. Inside the house, Clara slept peacefully. For the first time in years, her dreams were soft. She dreamed of her childhood, of her sister, of laughter by the lake, and she smiled in her sleep. It was a quiet Sunday morning. The air was still, and the house felt softer than usual. Cynthia stood by the kitchen window, watching the sun rise slowly in the sky. The orange light stretched across the lawn. Birds flew low and the wind whispered through the trees. Inside the house, everything was still. Daniel was reading quietly in the living room. Clara was resting in her bed. The past few nights had been harder. Her breathing had become slower, her voice weaker. But she never complained. She only smiled and asked Cynthia to sit with her, to hold her hand, to read stories, to talk about memories. Cynthia knew what was coming. She had seen it in the way Clara's eyes stayed closed longer, in the way her hands had grown colder. She wanted more time, but she also knew time was not something she could hold on to. That afternoon, Clara asked for a piece of paper and a pen. Her hands shook as she wrote. Her words came slowly. Each letter felt like a goodbye. She folded the paper and handed it to Cynthia. Do not read it now, Clara said gently. Read it when I am gone. Cynthia nodded, though tears filled her eyes. She placed the letter in her bedside drawer. Then she sat beside Clara again and held her hand. They did not speak for a while. They just breathed together, heart to heart, sister to sister. That night, Clara slept early. Her breaths were deep and long. Daniel and Cynthia sat in the hallway, just outside her door. They did not speak much. They simply sat and listened. At 3 in the morning, Cynthia woke suddenly. The house was silent. Too silent. She rushed to Clara's room and found her still lying there, peaceful, her chest no longer rising, her hand no longer warm. Daniel came quickly. He wrapped his arms around Cynthia as she cried. The pain was sharp and deep, but it was not empty. It was filled with every hug, every laugh, every shared moment they had been given. Later that morning, the hospice nurse arrived and helped with everything. Pastor James came to the house and prayed over Clara. He reminded Cynthia that Clara had found peace, that she had made things right, that love had been restored. The funeral was held 3 days later. The church was filled with people from the town. Some had known Clara. Others came for Cynthia. All came to honor the life of a woman who had come back to forgive and be forgiven. Cynthia stood at the front of the church with Daniel beside her. She spoke slowly, her voice shaking but strong. Clara was not just my sister. She was my first friend, my childhood playmate, the keeper of my secrets. Life took us in different directions. Pain pulled us apart, but love brought us back together. And for that, I will always be thankful. After the funeral, Cynthia returned home. She sat on her bed and opened the drawer. She pulled out the letter Clara had written. With trembling fingers, she opened the paper and began to read. Dear Cynthia, if you are reading this, then I have already gone. But please know this. I am proud of you. I am proud of the woman you became. I am proud of the way you loved Daniel, the way you stood up to Marcus, the way you fought to forgive me. I never said it enough. But I love you. I always have. Even when I did not understand you, even when I judged you, I was scared, and I was wrong. But love does not die with mistakes. It lives in forgiveness. Please live fully, love deeply, and never hide your truth again. Your story matters. You matter. With all my love. Clara. Cynthia held the letter to her chest. Her tears flowed freely, but her heart was full. Clara had gone, but she had left behind something no illness could steal. Peace, closure, love. Daniel came and sat beside her. He did not speak. He just held her. Weeks passed slowly. The season began to change. Leaves turned golden and the air felt cooler. Cynthia would walk through the garden behind their house each morning. She had planted flowers there after Clara's funeral. White lilies, Clara's favorite. Each bloom felt like a memory. Each petal a moment they had shared. Daniel watched over Cynthia with gentle care. He knew grief could not be rushed. He never pushed her to talk. He simply stayed close. He made her tea. He cooked her favorite meals. He left small notes around the house with simple messages. I love you. You are strong. I am here. One day, Cynthia sat on the back porch with the letter from Clara resting on her lap. She had read it many times. But today she read it differently. She no longer cried. She smiled. She felt ready. Daniel joined her on the porch. I have something to show you, he said. He handed her a folder. Inside was a draft of a new website. It had her name at the top. It was a blog, a space for stories, for truth, for healing. What is this, Cynthia asked. Your voice, he replied. You have so much to share. Your past, your strength, your journey. There are women out there who need to know they are not alone. I built this with you in mind, but only if you are ready. Cynthia stared at the screen. Her heart beat faster. She had once hidden from her story. Now it was time to share it. She started writing that night. Her first post was titled I Ran, but I Found Myself. She wrote about fear, about escape, about starting over. She wrote about the wedding, about the moment Pastor James stopped the ceremony, about the silence, about the truth, and about the love that followed. The post went live the next day, and within hours comments began to appear. Women from different places wrote messages. Thank you. I needed this. You told my story. You gave me hope. Cynthia read each one with tears in her eyes. Her pain had become light for someone else. The blog grew. Each week, Cynthia wrote another piece. She wrote about Clara, about healing, about forgiveness. She invited guest writers. She hosted small online groups. Women gathered, shared, prayed, supported each other. She called it new roots, because that is what she was planting. New growth from old soil, life from pain. Daniel was proud. He helped with the tech side. Pastor James featured one of her posts in the church bulletin. Cynthia began to speak at small events, then bigger ones. Her voice, once quiet, now carried strength. One day after a conference in the city, a young woman approached her. Her eyes were filled with tears. "I was planning to run away tonight," she said, "from my husband. He is cruel. I felt so alone. But then I heard your story, and now I know I am not alone. Thank you." Cynthia hugged her. "You are never alone, and you are stronger than you think." That night, Cynthia sat with Daniel on their porch again. The stars sparkled above them. "Did you ever imagine this?" she asked him. "No," he said, "but I always believed in it." They sat in silence, hands intertwined. Inside the house, the lilies on the table were fresh. The blog notifications continued to buzz. The world was still broken, but something had changed. Cynthia had become a light. 1 year later, the town of Greenfield looked the same, but everything felt different to Cynthia. The church bell still rang every Sunday. Children still played in the park. The flowers in front of the town library still bloomed brightly. But inside her, something had changed forever. She stood at the front of the church again. The same place where her wedding almost ended, where her truth was revealed, where her heart had broken and been rebuilt all in the same hour. She stood there now for a different reason. Pastor James had invited her to speak. It was the anniversary of the church's founding, a celebration of faith, truth, and healing. Cynthia took the microphone in her hand. She looked at the crowd. Many were familiar faces. Some were new. All were listening. She took a deep breath. 1 year ago, I stood right here with fear in my heart and secrets in my soul. I thought my world was ending, but what I thought was the end became the beginning of truth, the beginning of love, the beginning of healing. She told her story again, not with shame, not with tears, but with strength. She spoke about running, about hiding, about the moment Pastor James paused the wedding, about the confession, about Clara, about the goodbye letter, about new roots. People listened with silent respect. Some cried, some nodded. All felt the weight and the warmth of her words. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Pastor James walked to the front. He took her hand and raised it gently. "This is what faith looks like," he said. "Not perfection, but truth. Not hiding, but healing." After the service, Cynthia and Daniel walked through the town square. A few women came up to her. They had read her blog. They had followed her journey. They thanked her for her honesty, for her courage. One young girl handed her a small note. It read, "You helped my mom leave a bad place. Thank you for being brave." Cynthia's eyes filled with tears. She folded the note and placed it in her purse beside Clara's letter. She still carried that letter every day, a reminder of what had been lost and what had been found. Later that evening, Daniel and Cynthia sat on the porch once again. The garden was full of new flowers, more lilies, roses, daisies, all planted with love, all blooming with life. Daniel held her hand. "Do you ever miss the quiet life we used to have?" he asked with a smile. "Sometimes," she said, laughing softly, "but this life has purpose, and I would not trade it for anything." Daniel nodded. "You have become someone so many people look up to. I am proud of you." "I could not have done it without you," she whispered. They sat in silence. The stars above them, the wind brushing through the trees, the world around them calm and still. As they watched the sky, Cynthia whispered a final prayer. "Thank you for the pain, for the lessons, for the second chances, for the love that stayed." And somewhere in the wind, she felt Clara's presence, not as a shadow, not as a goodbye, but as peace. Thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate your time and support. If you enjoyed the video, please give a thumbs up and don't forget to leave a meaningful comment below. Let us know your thoughts and tell us where you're watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. It means a lot to us to hear from you. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more amazing content like this. And to all our returning subscribers, thank you for your continued support. We couldn't do this without you. Stay tuned for more exciting videos coming your way, and we'll see you in the next one.